Good morning, Year 6. So this is a brand new research-based topic, which will help us when it comes to term 2, or the end of term 2 and the beginning of term 3, when we may start to look in more detail at RE, or religious education, which is something that hopefully you'll get a bit more understanding of as we go through this particular activity or lesson. So, first of all, question, what am I learning to do in this lesson? Well, what you're learning to do is you're learning to ask questions which allow you to investigate and find out more about a subject. So that's like our BST learner profile question, or statement, should I say. This is what we're trying to do. You are going to be coming up with questions which will allow you to investigate and find out more about a particular subject, which is going to be connected with RE, okay, religious education. So first of all, then, we need to think a little bit about this and what we're actually going to be doing. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do now is I'm going to pause this video and I want you to make a copy of this slideshow so that you can actually add to, because I'm going to ask some various questions, and when I ask the question, I want you to write in your replies or to answer those questions that I ask. So I'm going to pause it now. Please make a copy of it and share it with me or your teacher. In this case, it is me if you're in 6P. Okay, I'm assuming that you have had time now to answer that question, okay, or not to answer the question, should I say, to make a copy of the slideshow, right? So you've made a copy of the slideshow, so let's first of all then move on to our first questions. What is Christianity? So we're talking about religious education. Now, it's a simple question. What is Christianity? And my second question is, what is Judaism? Now, it doesn't matter how much you know about either. I really am not interested in that. I'm just interested in what you do know. So I'm going to pause this video now, and you'll notice on the next slide, it's blank. So I want you to answer on that slide. I want you to write your answers to both of those questions. And take about 2 minutes or so, 2 or 3 minutes maybe, to think about that. Don't have to answer in too much detail, but it's up to you how much you do answer. And if you do know a lot, or if you think you know a lot, write down what you think the answer would be to what is Christianity and what is Judaism. It may be that the answer is in one simple answer to both questions. I don't know. So I'm going to pause it now. Okay, so here are my definitions of what Christianity is and what Judaism is. So Christianity and Judaism are types of religion. They're both religions, okay? Now, what are religions? Well, religions help their followers, people who follow that religion, so whether they're Christian and they follow Christianity, or whether they're Jewish and they follow Judaism, they help people to find meaning in the world around them. Okay. Finally, they help their followers to answer some important questions, because often people who follow a religious faith or a religion, they have questions that they want answered, and they believe that this religion allows them to answer these important questions that they have. So let's move on. Now, religions. I want to just talk a little bit more about religions. Religions offer answers through festivals, places of worship, inspirational leaders, and sacred texts. Okay, these are the way that they offer answers. And those 4 areas are really important. So my next question is, based on festivals, places of worship, inspirational leaders, and sacred texts, why are these important? These 4 areas, why are they important? Now, again, I want you to think about that and spend 2 or 3 minutes just answering the questions on the next slide, okay? Because the next slide, again, is a blank slide. Okay, off you. Okay, so hopefully you've now had a go without looking at the slides, which do explain, in my opinion, what the actual answers are to these questions. Like, why are sacred places important? Why are places of worship important? Sorry, why are sacred texts important, should I say? Or any of these different aspects to a religion. But here are the answers that I've got anyway. And these are the answers that I believe sort of help or will help you to understand. Well, festivals are important to religions because they celebrate religious ideas and historical events from that religion. So they help people to better understand a little bit more about that religion. Places of worship, why are they important? Well, places of worship help religious teachers to provide answers to the followers of that religion. They also offer followers the chance to ask more questions, mix with other followers, and ask their God or gods for guidance. Thirdly, sacred texts are instruction manuals on how to live life and find the answers to these great questions. Sacred texts basically, as I say, are like an instruction manual of sorts. And finally, inspirational leaders give lessons. They write ideas, advice, and assistance for their followers to follow, or have done, because often inspirational leaders are people who lived in the past, okay, according to these religions. So, those are my answers to that question. Now, based on that, and based on our original question, which was, what am I learning to do in this lesson? Which is, I can ask questions which allow me to investigate and find out more about that subject. Let's have a look at that then. So, our inquiry, and it's going to be an inquiry that carries on over the next, and it could be quite a long time, over 2, 3, 4 lessons, and it'll continue up until the end of the half term, or the beginning of the half term, should I say. We're looking at what questions do you have about these religions, and then we're going to be investigating and researching that. Now, you will have questions about Christianity and Judaism, or both. I'm sure you have some questions. You may know a lot about both religions. You may not know much about either religion. However, it's important for us to allow you the opportunity to investigate your questions and come up with questions that you want the answers to. So, I've given you an example of some of the questions you might possibly come up with. So, do Christians have a sacred text? Some of you may know that, some of you know. It could be as simple as that if you know nothing about Christianity. Do Jews have a place of worship? Again, likewise. You may know that, you may not know that. However, if you do have some basic understanding of that, and you want more information and because for example, you do know a little bit about the sacred text of Christianity, then you might ask a question like this: what sort of important questions would the Christian sacred texts answer? Now, that's a much deeper question. And it really is thinking, well, actually, what do they, really, what important questions? Because it says, they're supposed to answer important questions. Well, what important questions do they answer? Okay, and then likewise, how does a Jewish place of worship help Jews to ask their God or gods for guidance? So, we talked about places of worship or religions being a place where they can find the answers to particular questions or they can ask advice. So how does a Jewish place of worship help Jews to do that? Okay, how does it allow them to do that? It's a really good question, a very deep question as well. Okay, so what we want you to do now is we want you on the next slide to ask your own questions about the Jewish faith and about those 4 areas. Okay, so the areas are, if you remember, up here. Okay, where are they? Festivals, places of worship, inspirational leaders, and sacred texts. Now, I'm going to add in another one as well here. I'm going to add in, gods and belief, because I think that's really important, okay? So, there's actually 5 areas you can think about asking questions about: festivals, places of worship, inspirational leaders, sacred texts, and finally, gods and belief. Okay. So think about the questions you want to ask about both or either. Okay. It really doesn't matter what the questions are in terms of, as long as they're your questions and they're questions you want investigating. So think carefully and write down any questions about the Jewish or the Christian faith linked to those 5 different areas. Now, it could just be one question for each. It could be 3 questions. It could be 1 question on each of those points. It's up to you. It can be as many questions or as few questions as you want to ask. But it is really important because these questions we are going to use to build our projects, our inquiries around. So, can I ask you, please, to complete your questions now on the next slide. And then just for the final bit, come back to the video after you've done that. Okay, so based on those questions, what we're going to do is, these are the questions you want to research. We will decide whether we're going to find out, let me read it from the start. Sorry. Based on the questions you want to research, you will need to decide whether you are going to find out more about Christianity or Judaism. Now, I'm going to take all of the questions you've got and I'm going to decide, I'm going to go through them and we're going to look at the questions that for Christianity and for Judaism, and we'll think about which questions would be best. Like there might be questions about sacred texts or places of worship or inspirational leaders, whatever they are. We'll put those questions onto a doc. Now, once I've put those questions on, I want you to think very carefully about whether you feel it would be best to learn or find out more about Christianity or Judaism. Not both, but one or the other. So if you feel, actually, I know quite a lot about Christianity and the questions that I've asked or the questions that I can see on this document, which I will put together at some point, based on that, I think maybe I'd want to know more about Judaism. So perhaps you would like to know more about Judaism. Now, what I want you to do next is, and I'm just going to insert another slide. I'm going to copy this slide here and just paste it in here. I want you just to write down whether at the moment you feel you'd rather learn or inquire about Christianity or Judaism. And just put Christianity or Judaism on this slide. That's all I want you to do, so I know what you would prefer to do. Right, that's it for today's session. Okay, I hope to see you tomorrow or whenever we are able to meet again in person. Thank you very much, and I hope this was useful.